What's good, gang? How y'all doing? Design Syndrome here. I'm gonna do the weekly challenge, the Swiss Design weekly challenge. I'm gonna do my submission live to show you a bit the thought process behind using grids in an effective way and as they should be used. Right? We're gonna talk about a little bit about Swiss Design and what's the purpose of it, right? And I'm gonna do a quick feedback round of the things I see on the Discord channel that y'all are submitting. Okay, so Swiss design is not so much like a style you do, right? Like I'm gonna do Swiss style. Like you can do that, but Swiss design really it originated after World War II, right? Some Swiss designers started to take really heavy inspiration and construct off of the constructivist movement of the Bauhaus and all the work those dudes were doing, and it was sort of a response to the graphic design needs that people were starting to have, right? The graphic design was a little bit more subjective then, right? Let me show you some examples of what I mean. These kind of pieces, right? The structure is not that clear. They are beautiful in their own right? But Sweden designers like Joseph Muller Brockman and Armin Hoffman were the ones that started to do and really to push this way of designing, right? For example, we have these kind of works. For example, here I found this Behance project that did an analysis, for example, from posters from Muller Brockman, and you can see how they started to use this dude like went really crazy with the mathematical analysis and portraying of the grids, right? You don't need to do this. This is like way over the top, but it shows you like to the degree that the organizational elements start to respond to something, right? Because when we were designing sort of stuff like this that were more subjective, now design needed to turn into something that was more objective, right? To be contrary to subjective, because you could understand the hierarchical values and read this in whatever order you like. It has a hierarchy, but it could vary from person to person, right? But stuff like this tends to work in a more organized manner, regardless of who views it, right? And for example, in this one, we can see how the center starts to create the guidelines in which the text starts to support itself on the right wall of the column, right? And we can see how the eye goes from the big one to the middle one, and then the this one, the 90-degree one, and the small one, right? And the same happened with the text, because your eyes goes boom boom boom, then from Musica Viva you need to start reading all over again, so your eyes do those kind of this movement all over the page, right? And and this was all thought out by the designers, right, back then. And I made this board to show you how Swiss design really then started to take over, right? And it's not just a way of designing like I do Swiss design, right? Or Swiss style. It really permeated into every design, kind of design genre, and design overall of branding, of packaging design, right? Stuff that is a bit more modern, right? The key elements of the core principles were it needed to have clarity, order, readability, and objectivity. That was the thing that I was saying at the beginning, in contraposition of it being really subjective, right? So the purpose of using grids is to really starting to draw the eye, right, from one point to the other, and really start to create some sort of hierarchy and compositional sense, right, of the pieces. It's not just a thing of, oh, I'm going to do a grid and I'm going to put the things inside the grid just for the sake of putting them in a grid, right? But it needs to have a sense of why is everything there, and start to establish correlations between the elements in design that we put in the grid. So we create flow, right? We're using the columns and the rows to draw the eye and to make assimilations between the design elements, right? So for example, let's go now to the Discord. Oh, we are here right now. But for example, this one, right? This is a rave flyer, right, from Minsk, and from here you can start to see how they have those variables, right? For example, they have the main stage and the outdoor stage, and you can see how both are written and traditional writing with a capital at the beginning and then minuscule letters to end the phrase, right? So we have main stage, then the outdoor stage, and then the artists are the second point of interest, right? We have first the rave, and then we have the artist, right? We have the what here. This element answers the what of the flyer. Then we have the who, which is the artist, and we have them separated here. And because we have one at the top and one at the bottom, we can start to tell, oh, okay, they are divided, and then we check, and then yeah, main stage, outdoor stage, right? We have the different artists. Then, for example, this one, you can see the AKA, Sagor, Stev, and the Ru and the Live US, right? Those start to be variables inside those elements of design, right? So we have first the title of the rave, then we have the how we are going to signal the stages, right? So we have the main stage, outdoor stage, and it responds to being on the same row, right? So that's an element of how do we merge them together while separating them, but at the same time how we make it easily recognizable that we are talking about the same thing, right? So we put it in the same row, we use the same font in the same size, right? So we start to establish a system of design that's supporting itself on constant and variables, right? Because you can see not all the DJs or all the artists that are presenting have this variable of the text, like the little text on top. So that visually starts to create something more interesting, right? Like, oh, we have a little detail there. What does it mean, right? So yeah, and then we have the what is this? The date, and then the time, and I guess I don't know what is this, the price and the age, right? So, and you can see that's written in a way that not other thing in the flyer is written, right? So maybe this text of the date and the date is similar to the artist, but it's not on the same row, and it's not aligned to the main stage and outdoor stage, right? So this is a very clear, simple way of how you can start to use these elements and how to use the grid to parse the information in a way that makes sense, right? So just starting out, this one I feel I feel was a really nice first submission because it has like a clear entry point, has nice hierarchies that are well placed on the grid. I feel like it maybe overused too much. Like it's easy to establish like the variables and all of these different uh, design elements when you box them together, right? It will be nicer maybe if you could only do it with text, right, without relying on the shapes. But it's all cool. So this one is great. I feel like we can enter the debate of maybe I would put some elements down here, or maybe if they are gonna be so easily recognizable, right? I guess it's the Figma, like a Figma convention, and it makes sense. Like it's a drop down; they are all together. But if they're all the same design with the background color, you can start to put them in different places, right? And I would recognize that are the same thing. You're talking about the same stuff because they have the same backdrop, and the little compositions are all the same. So I would associate they are all for the same thing, right? Or the same type of information, right? Look at it like that. Like everything you put, every design element you put within a poster or within every piece, to what it answering, right? If you make a poster for an event, like first is what is the event, so that is the what. Then who is gonna be in the event? Then when, right? So what's the event? What's happening in the event? Who is being in the event? Where is the event? And when is the event? Right? So all those different whys and different questions we answer in information, right? And that information makes sense that we display differently across the piece, right? So the title is written differently that what is happening in the convention, right? Like when we say it out loud, it feels like, yeah, it's logic, right? But then when we start to design, sometimes it starts to happen. Let me see. For example, this one I felt that first the grid is not that apparent, right? And we have text that just divided to one side and then to the other side, so that's kind of odd. And also we are putting, okay, I guess these are the top 10 qualifiers, but there is no need really to put them all in both rows with the numbers. They are all together, and it's a really simple association by proximity that we are talking about the same kind of information. But maybe you could sparse them out, right, all around the poster, and it they being the same on the same position relative to the grid. We would also understand that that it's a lineup, and it would work. And I could even be more in parts with the aesthetic of the racing line, right, when the races are about to come out, and then you can start to see how you can use that positional thing in the grid. It's similar, right, to how they come out in the race, because it's also called the grid, right? So that's a way also we can use the elements. This one is another that I thought it was cool, right? Because it's you could we could argue more about the grid, right? But he's using the different hierarchies to convey different questions, right? To answer different questions about the convention, and they are being presented in different styles, right? So we have the conference, and then we have the location that's a bit different to the when it's the convention, to the what's happening in the convention, right? So we have all of these different questions answered graphically in a poster that follows some guideline, right? So that is the use of grids. This one was, oh, did I say this was okay? Yes. Yes, it is. I think this one it's okay. You could differentiate more, like the what's the convention to the where to the when, right? To the what are the speakers. I really like the image at the background. That's also like objective photography was a thing on Swiss Design that they wanted to move away from illustration because photography is far more accurate representation of reality. That was they take, right. This one is nice. This one is nice. You see how there's a little difference between the elements, but you can see how she did all for example, here it's crazy because it's putting founded based in websites, right? It's giving you it's creating information to put in the flyer, right? That then you can build up on and create different hierarchies for it, right? All the information that you can come up to, then that you can then translate visually, is going to help you to position things in a grid with more intention, right? For example, the website, all this row, I maybe do it less than this, right? The hierarchy of this should be less than the information you're trying to give. So I would change that and make it more apparent, because that's also a cool technique. Like if you look at the poster and squint your eyes, like, and do you know how to blur your vision, right? Like blur your vision, and you'll see how the poster like sort of blends together, right? And you need to be able to clearly see the different elements when you sort of squint your eyes and blur your vision, right? And then they don't get all cramped up together. This one again, you see, like if I look at it at a glance, I would feel that all this information, it's answering the same thing, right? But it says the date with the hour and the drinks bites, and then who are on the convention, right? And one would guess that there is information here that is far more important than other bits of information, right? This one's cool. You see, like every different bit of information is portrayed in a different way, and it follows the grid, right? And it makes sense, and it's easy to read, and you understand what happened. The information is being relayed to you easily, so it works. Blue and white one. This one. This one, my guy. I mean, according to what I just said about the pieces, kind of know you should kind of know what's wrong with yours, right? That's another key aspect about feedback rounds, right? Because it's like university. Sometimes your piece is not gonna receive one-on-one feedback, right? because, but also me as a quote unquote teacher, I'm looking at the pieces, I'm trying to respond to the error I think most are making, right? So according to what I just said, I feel you could kind of extrapolate and know what the mistake of this one is, right? Because yeah, it's beautifully it's beautifully placed on the grid. It's on the grid. That's that's great, right? But it's not any placement on anything. It's not responding to no question. You know what I mean? Even Lorem Ipsum here is not a flyer about anything, right? So you're just putting things on a flyer. The poster is beautiful. If you could fill it with all the information that actually made sense, then yeah, right? You could make it only aesthetic, but the purpose of the exercise was to come up with a made up event so you can, okay, this is going to be the title of the event, and here I'm going to place the date, and this is going to be the auditorium, and I could put the date here, and maybe if I put the date here, I could put where you can buy the tickets here, and maybe on that, on this column, I could place what are the speakers, right? And then I could link this to another row and put where are their nationalities, you know what I mean? And then you start to design, like, this is a beautiful poster, but it's not responding to the exercise. Is that kind of clear? For example, that poster, your poster, I would hang this shit on my wall, right? I wouldn't hang this shit on my wall, but this is a better design. You know what I mean? Right? There is more thought put into this, right? There is more thought put into this than into yours. You know what I mean? And because of that, maybe this now got too busy, right? But if this was a real flyer for Vogue festival, whatever, and it needed to have this information, then it is what it needs to be. It's not a thing of more or less beauty. It's if it works less or works more. I think this one is actually better because at least it feels like it's trying to say something, right? We have a date here. Arcana community, even this competes also a bit like the Berm here, and the Arcana community kind of competes. But keep in mind that, guys, like, me as a teacher and in the Discord channel, I'm seeing at all the pieces and seeing what are the common mistakes, and I'm trying to give feedback that you should be able to read and then extrapolate to your work. I don't know what is not focusing. It's like that, you know. In university, it was kind of like that. We would hang our pieces on the wall, and the teacher would go, this one, and it would talk about this one. Who this is? Who is this work from? And you would say me, and they would say come to the front and defend it, and you would say, well, I did this because da da da, and the teacher would say, that's fucking bullshit. And then that was a way of building like detachment from your own work, right? To be able to go, yeah, maybe it is kind of bullshit, right? And that's okay, right? But sometimes your work doesn't get picked, right? And you see the feedback on a partner or a friend group, a friend work, right? And you go, oh, maybe yeah, my work has some of that, I feel like, right? And then you look at your piece and you can say, I think I did some of that, you know what I mean? Let me see the first one. Yeah, I think it got better. I think it's you are doing the thing right. I feel like it has the title, it has the when, it has the where. Like, you should maybe work a bit more on how you develop your text, right? Because here you try to place, because you said like ink, three letters, you try to put one in each row, but it breaks the legibility too much. Like, one thing about Swiss is, don't make it, you can try to make it more complicated if you want to make it, like, I don't know, cooler, quote unquote cooler. But right now, for this exercise, we are going purist Swiss design. Let's make it, you know what I mean, like, readability, organized, right? And not try to break the style too much for now. It's just for the sake of getting the fundamentals right, because Swiss design is not so much about doing the style and making it look a certain way, right? But it's a design process that gets you to the style that Swiss design is famous for, right? And I have things on my grunge style grunge, brutalist style, whatever that are from Swiss design, right? Because it's what I studied, right? But in our university, I didn't study Swiss design. It's just how typography is taught, right? Because it's so intertwined right now with the way we interpret design and we use design like sorry in everything, right? How menus on cameras are designed, how packaging is designed for almost anything, right? The way text is aligned and the way this formation is portrayed, it's entirely influenced by that design movement from the end of Second World War to now. So learning this design style, it's one of the most important things you can do, because outside doing cool images for, I don't know, a client, when you need to design something even for yourself, you're trying to make a website for yourself, you're trying to make, I don't know, an email for your email list, or whatever thing that you need to build on, right? That you're gonna need to rely at some part that people are gonna have to understand it, then this is gonna be key thing to know and to have, right? So this one is cool. Like from this you can start to adjust, get better at typography, like get this typography stretch, or I don't know, it doesn't work well with this typography. I think this typography is beautiful, like the Moscow by West. This typography, I love it, right? Try to make everything with this type, make it like extra bold, ink tattoo convention, don't separate the letters, make it clear and cut, get rid of the images, like throw them away, and see how you can puzzle it back together. I think those hierarchies are good, and play a bit with it more. I don't know, make this copy of text, make it even smaller, play even more with the differences between the hierarchies to create that more clear flow from the where the eye should go, right? About picking the grids, usually for an A4 poster or something like that, I would go for a 4 by 8, right? Try to go, like, make it modular, right? If you go 4, go 8. If you go 2, go 4. If you go 6, go 12, right? And you can start to play. And also you can sort of look at the Fibonacci sequence and stuff like that to build asymmetrical grids, right? Grids don't need to be perfectly square. Grids can be tilted to one side or the other. Grid can be spiral. The thing of the grid is needs to be a skeleton for you to put your type on, made up of lines that follow whatever you're placing on the text, or elements on the flyer, on, or any piece, whether it may be. It's like if you look at nature, there are things that look wildly different to us, yet they work. This is kind of the same. You can make a perfectly rigid and flat grid, or you can make it whimsical and spiraling, like the one I show you from the Pinterest. Like the dude was making the circular reticle, with the angles and shit like that. But yeah, then you can start to sort of think like, okay, I need to portray a lot of information. Then my grid is gonna need to be a bit more. It's gonna need to be a bit more expansive, right? I'm gonna need more modules, so I'm gonna make it 9 by 18 or 6 by 12. You know what I mean? The mistake I saw most of you make, it's that you're just placing info on a grid, right? And that can work for aesthetic purposes. I've done it for sure on some of my pieces, and it's nothing wrong with that. But um, for the purpose of the exercise, we're trying to go a bit more extra, with the design aspect, and trying to make it fit within a certain logic that you're developing, like you're designing, right? Like that's design, right? You create the logic for the information to be distributed through your piece. That's design, right? Everything extra we try to do is not this exercise, right? Because we know then we are in the real world and we do it. But I like to think of it as this like this philosophy, right? Like we are training now. Like this is like when you go train, you go lift some heavy weights, right? Then you're not in the real world lifting things that heavy, right? But when you train, you do it heavy, you do it with purpose, you do it like that. So when you're on your everyday life, you don't feel that out of your depth, right? So for this purpose, try to go the extra mile, right? For the Swiss design, make it perfect, make it fit within the logic of the events you're trying to make, right? and make it believable, and sort of the references that I show, right? See how much levels of hierarchy they do for their pieces, how much text, subtext, what kind of information, where do they put it, how do they put it, right? What's the difference between how they show their date? And but okay, let's show. Let's do it. I'm gonna do mine now.